Hello and welcome to another episode of SG Crypto. Today we're going through DFlare and YFlare, really the use cases of each, what each of those assets are on the Flare network, and basically how you're going to get them, how they're going to be used, etc. So let's get into it. First of all, I want to go through DFlare. Um, DFlare basically, and this is just kind of a shout out to the DeFi Standard, their blog. I mean, this is an amazing resource. If you come to here, just type in the DeFi Standard, you'll find it right in Google, um, and you can come to here to Flare Network and go to Flare Network Ecosystem Glossary, and you can literally look at every single application that's going to be on here, every action that can be taken, assets, components, entities. If you have some confusion about Flare Network, the DeFi Standards blog is actually a great resource. Also, their YouTube channel at the DeFi Standard. Yeah, huge shout out because this can clear up a lot of confusion all in one place, so you don't have to go scrambling to 20 different websites for one, or I mean not one, but a few answers. So basically, I just a shout out to them, and I'll leave their link in the description, and I'll leave a link to every single resource that I do use in this video in the description of my video. So first of all, DAO Flare is it will be a short-term token utilized in the initial DAO offering from Flare Finance. DFlare will be airdropped to eligible Flare holders, so everybody who has Flare around 30 days after the launch of Flare Network. DFlare can then be swapped for the secondary governance token YFlare during a period of 7 to 10 days. And so I just want to point out, the people who have the Flare token, like it says here, DFlare will be airdropped to eligible Flare holders around 30 days after the launch of Flare Network. Everybody that has Flare, I mean, there's going to be kind of some questions or worries around that because of really just for XRP holders, because we're expecting a Flare airdrop, and the Flare airdrop will take place before this DFlare snapshot. So you will get the maximum rewards that you deserve. So don't worry about that. Some of you won't know what I'm talking about, but yeah, I just wanted to clear that up. Clear up any questions that are probably going to pop up. So now after this, so you'll have that the period of 7 to 10 days to claim that YFlare once you get your DFlare. And once the period ends, this is important, once the period ends, all DFlare tokens will be burned and cease to exist. So you will have, after that 7 to 10 days, they'll be gone. You'll never have the ability to use them for anything. And additionally, 1 million DFlare will be rewarded to the Songbird network variants for the Flare Farm and flareloans applications on the ExFi ecosystem. So that's us right now. That's what we're doing. We are, farming. We're entering liquidity pools, liquidating loans, etc., to earn DFlare, and that's going to be a 1 million DFlare cap. So once 1 million is accrued on ExFi V2, which we're currently on, there will be that's really it. So something to take note of. And another thing about the DFlare, so this is on the actual Flare Finance white paper, and I'll leave this link in the description as well if you guys kind of want to read through this. But basically, so the DFlare is a claim token, and it is a valueless token which allows its holder to claim a utility token. The claim token in the Flare Finance ecosystem is DFlare. DFlare allows holders to claim YFlare. So DFlare is a claim token, and it is a claim token because it's being used to claim the utility token YFlare. Okay, so it is a valueless token. It has absolutely no value other than the ability, well, in terms of money, but it gives you the ability to claim YFlare, which does have value. So as far as that goes, so we went over that, 1 million right now, 1 million DFlare is being accrued through the ExFi V2 protocols. Now, secondly, the airdrop. So this is where the rest of the DFlare you're going to earn comes from. And this is the ratio. So for every 172 flare that you have, when the snapshot takes place, you will get 1 DFlare. And a total of, let me cycle through this quick, a total of 40 million DFlare is available to claim for the holders of the flare. The reason you see that 6 billion there is just because that's the circulating supply that is going to be available at that time, because only 15%, this is for the XRP holders, I hope this isn't going to confuse anybody, but 15% of flare tokens is going to be dropped to XRP holders when the platform does launch. So yeah, just 40 million DFlare is going to be available to flare holders, and that's going to be at that ratio of 172 flare per 1 DFlare. Now I want to go into the YFlare. So let's go over here. So YFlare is the secondary governance token of the Flare Finance ecosystem, and it can be utilized across the entire suite of products on Flare Finance. 40 million total is going to be available and is going to be distributed to Flare holders during this 7 to 10 day snapshot. So there's going to be 40 million DFlare available, or 41 million, I guess, and 40 million DFlare is going to be able to be claimed. Now the thing with YFlare is it has a lot of use cases. So some of those use cases are right here. They're all laid out in this, and this is this might be something you want to go through on your own time. But so there's 10 different use cases. Number 1 is going to be replacing exchange fees on FlareX. 2, secondary governance under YFin. Number 3, it's going to allow you to have voting on new token listings on FlareX. 4, voting on new trading pairs on FlareX. 5, staking it on Flare Farm to earn the primary governance token YFin. And YFin is also going to be, you're also going to be able to use that and stake that for more assets, more F assets, and for fees. So there's a little bit of compounding interest right there. Number 6, participating in liquidity pools on FlareX. Number 7, participating in launch pads on Flare Farm. 8, replacing fees on Flare Wrap, providing it as collateral for loans on flareloans, and providing it as coverage on Flare Mutual. Some of these things I'm not even aware of what they'd be used for, as far as like, you know, kind of like replacing exchange fees, or yeah, replacing fees on Flare Wrap. I'm not sure really what that is, or what that would entail. So don't really don't get too concerned with that. Don't get too caught up in that, because we're not even there. I would say we're about like a month at least away from this launching, because I don't believe there is a set date of when Flare Network is actually going to launch. I mean, look at this. I mean, May, 30 days after Flare Network's launch, which they say around May, July. And I remember back when they first took the airdrop a year ago, the snapshot of XRP for the Flare. I remember when they took that snapshot a year ago, and I was expecting to get some Flare around May and July so I could start using it in Flare Networks, and here we are, still on a Songbird platform, you know, the test network. So it's kind of funny. Some people do get upset about it, but I really don't care, because we're getting so many free assets. It's insane. And you know, you can't really be upset about free money. So, and another thing is, I would rather them get all the bugs out of the way right now on the Songbird testnet, rather than have them launch Flare Finance and Flare Networks and have to deal with a ton of bullshit and losing money. And I'm sure I mean, obviously they don't want to deal with that because they launched Songbird. Yeah, it's just kind of a little funny thing. But yeah, so YFlare has a lot of use cases, as you can see, 10 different use cases here. And these are, it says here, including but not limited to. There's gonna be a lot here, and that's why I'm really interested in DFlare. You know, I know it says it's a valueless token, but it's only in terms of money it's valueless, because you have the ability to get YFlare, which then opens up many doors to many different opportunities. Now I kind of want to jump. This also has to do with YFlare. So Flare Finance will be featuring a governance staking pool for its 2 governance tokens, YFlare and YFin. Users can stake both tokens in return for a fixed range yield set by governance, and that range yield is going to be between 5 and 35% APY. Now, additionally, only YFlare and YFin staked in this pool can vote on governance proposals. So only if you are staked. So if you have YFlare or YFin, it doesn't matter. The only time it will matter as far as governance matters, the only way you will have a vote or a say on what goes on in the ecosystem is if you are staked in these governance pools. And the yield delivered to the YFlare or YFin stakers is comprised of fees collected by the APY cloud. So from the various applications of the Flare Finance ecosystem. So this governance staking pool allows you to vote on different things that go on in different protocols across the network, and it's also giving you a yield of between 5 and 35% that is comprised of the fees that are collected across the entire ecosystem. Maybe not the entire ecosystem, but various applications in the Flare Finance ecosystem. So, that's awesome. That's amazing because that's free money right there. I mean, we're getting DFlare for free right now because we got free Songbird. So yeah, let's start with Songbird. We got free Songbird launched to us, which we then were able to use to get DFlare, which DFlare is then used to get YFlare and YFin and these governance tokens. And so the Songbird is a huge token that they gave to us for free. Some not free because Coinbase or different platforms are still holding on to, which I don't really give a shit about either. But yeah, it's just free money, and for people to get upset for this being postponed without looking at the upside of it, which is free money, is just kind of a shame. So yeah, that's really everything. DFlare, so it's a valueless token. I just kind of want to do a little recap. So number one, we're earning DFlare, a valueless token in terms of money, on ExFi, which has a 1 million cap. And then secondly, 40 million DFlare will get airdropped to Flare holders at a 1 DFlare to 172 Flare ratio 30 days after Flare network launches. Number three, after all the DFlare is accumulated and airdropped, there will then be a 7 to 10 day time period. In this time period, the 7 to 10 day period will take place during the DFlare airdrop period. And during this 7 to 10 day period, you will have to swap your DFlare into YFlare. And if you don't swap to YFlare, all the DFlare that hasn't been swapped will be burned and will cease to exist after this period. I'm a little off on my language today. Holy cats. Number four, YFlare is the secondary governance token to YFin. YFlare has many use cases. Refer to link. So that's just in this white paper. That's all these right here. I'm going to leave that in the description. But let's continue here. So it has many use cases, and most importantly, and this is in my opinion, it's these three. These are the most important use cases it has. And the first one being, you have the ability to stake it in order to have decisions within the network on the entire ecosystem. Secondly, you get to receive a portion of fees that are accrued in the ecosystem. And thirdly, you earn YFin, the primary governance token. And YFin then allows you to also stake in pools to receive fees, and also to have even more of a decision on tokens that are brought onto the platform, and etc. So this is not something to shy away from. And this is why I've said in past videos, I pretty much say in every video, that DFlare is what I'm after. And this is a clear example of why, because it has so much use and it unlocks a lot for you. So with that, I hope I didn't miss anything. I'm going to leave links to everything that I went over, every single website that I was on. I'm going to leave a link to in the description for you guys, so you can kind of go through it at your own leisure if you please. Again, a huge shout out to the DeFi Standard for all their awesome content. But yeah, with that, if you have any questions, please reach out either in the comment section, or you can click on the link in the description and just kind of email me directly if you'd rather do that. And I huge shout out to all the people that have been answering questions in the comments. I'm not always able to, and having some people to kind of pick up my slack is fantastic. So thank you all. Thank you for your support, and till next time. Later.